my dudes, how you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing Getafe and Bordalás. That's more or less the coach, José Bordalás. He tends to play a very good, aggressive 4-4-2 system, and more so on the defensive end, very good structurally sound, defensively wise. Players know what they're doing. Everybody knows when to rotate, when to press, when to keep their shape, their structure. And honestly, it's a fantastic attacking, counter-attacking type system that this team is set up. If you guys could, before we hop on any further into the video, could you hit the like button, please? That would be absolutely goddamn fantastic. And of course, subscribe if you are new to the channel. But let's have a look at what Bordalás as well as Getafe have to offer for us. So, taking a look at the formation at hand, it is going to be a 4-4-2 flat. And as you'll see, there's quite a few pairings, and that does go hand in hand with the tactics and the instructions, and we will talk about that later on. But I've made no structural changes to this 4-4-2 flat formation. Therefore, it will be one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two central midfielders, two wider midfielders, and then of course two strikers. So, taking a look at the tactics, I think the best tactical vision that suits what Getafe and Bordalás want is more or less kick and rush. They can be very good compact defensively wise, but when going forward, it's all about pace, power, and trying to exploit the opposition. Also, trying to create those 2v1 type situations, whether it's in the wide areas or more centrally. Now, I do potentially think that kick and rush can suit the players at hand in this side, as well as what the manager wants them to produce. So, taking a look at the defense and the defensive style, I've set it to pressure on heavy touch. Now, more so, it's more about compactness, making sure that the structure is very hard to break down, pass through the lines, make those vertical passes. But at the same time, every now and then, Bordalás does expect a side to press, and there are certain triggers that increases the likelihood of a certain press. More so when the centre-backs or potentially the goalkeeper look to try and play those safer passes into the full-backs. That will in turn trigger the press, and as a cohesive unit, the team will look to aggressively press on that side of the field, either looking for a potential turnover, forcing the opposition into going long, allowing for essentially them to play into the hands of what the team is required to do, and that is to try and win the ball back in the defensive area. Of course, the centre-backs are very good in the air, and obviously they'll look to circulate it back into your team's possession. You are looking to try and force mistakes and errors, and obviously looking to turn them over into counter-attacking opportunities. As for the team width, like I said, it's a very compact unit, looking to try and break down the central areas of the offensive builder play from the opposition, making sure that it's very hard to try and play through the lines or try and play the ball to those more attacking threats to your team at hand. And more so, it does tend to try and cut out and stifle as many passes as possible. In terms of the depth, now this does vary, but it's never going to be a high line. It's not going to be a progressive offensive type system. It's more so very structurally sound. It's a mid block that I've set it up for their base set of instructions, but more so it can also vary. If you are playing a Barcelona, you can look to try and drop that a bit deeper into a more of a low block type approach. As for the offense and the builder plan chance creation, it is set to long ball and direct passing. That does go hand in hand with the likes of the tactical vision, the kick and rush approach. More so, this does increase the likelihood of your forwards making those runs in behind, using their physicality to the advantage of your side, and it also can increase the likelihood of any potential counterattacks that you can look to try and work, whether it's on the right hand side or potentially the left hand flank. As you'll see here for the width, it's not the widest of spreads. It's set to 60. You aren't really looking to stretch the opposition too much. You are looking to more so try and create overloads, like I mentioned earlier. With the system, of course, there are quite a few pairings. You've got the two centre backs, you've got the two full backs, you've got the two central midfielders, the two wingers, and of course the two strikers. Now, either or can look to try and create those 2v1 type situations, and that's more or less what you're trying to do. You're not trying to beat the team, the opposition side, by stretching them too much, creating gaps between the lines. It's more so that quick 1-2 type passing, the interchanging of positions every now and then with the fullbacks as well as the wingers. You do see quite a bit of the winger might drop into the fullback position and the fullback might overlap quite effectively. But we will discuss that later on with the potential instructions. But more so, again, you aren't looking to stretch the opposition too much, trying to play those little 1-2 passes in behind every now and then. As for the players in the box, again, I've set it to a very balanced 5. You're not trying to overcommit too many players. Of course, it's all about the structure and the intensity of the defensive outlets of the side. But every now and then, you do expect the team to show a bit more of an attacking flair. And of course, this season with the new loanee addition of Mason Greenwood, they've been able to, carve open teams a bit more efficiently, you could say. Mason Greenwood is obviously a massive talent from Manchester United, but nonetheless, talking about the players inside the box, you want to try and commit your 2 forwards into that attacking area, but then again, every now and then, maybe one other potential player, whether it's one of your central midfielders or potentially one of your wider playmakers. As for the corners and the free kicks, as per always, it is set to 4. Okay, so taking a look at the instructions, starting off at the back with the goalkeeper. Of course, Soraya, he is set to come for crosses and a balanced, more traditional type goalkeeping mold for him in terms of his saving outside of the box. You don't really require him to do too much. You have very good pacey centre-backs in front of him. And of course, you aren't playing the highest of lines, and more so it will be a low block at times. So you don't really require him to be too far out of his box or off of his line at times. But in terms of saving on crosses, you do expect him to do a very good job at alleviating the stress and the pressure on the opposition, or sorry, on your defenders from the opposition. More so, you are trying to funnel the opposition into those wider channels, and they will obviously then look to try and, whip in as many crosses and goal-scoring opportunities for their forwards. So you need a proactive and reactive goalkeeper, very, aggressive man in the air to try and, stifle and claim those aerial balls when they are whipped into the box. As for your 2 centre-backs, no major changes to them. Of course, they are going to be very good, aerially dominant centre-backs. They can look to out-duel their opponents, but other than that, the instructions are set to the base set of instructions. Onto the likes of your fullbacks. Now, they can look to attack, they can look to get forward, but not as much as what you might think. Of course, with the kick and rush approach, it's more so, in favor of your forwards getting in behind, not really your fullbacks. And I think it does play into the hands of what Bordalás wants. He wants a very strong, compact backline unit, and every now and then you do see a fullback getting forward, whipping in those early crosses, being very integral in the offensive outlets. But you don't always require them to get forward. You want to try and solidify that backline as best as possible. So in order to replicate that role, both Iglesias and Rico will have the same instructions. Both will be set to a balanced attack. So if the opportunity is there and the space is in front of them, they can look to work their way into that attacking space. The run type will be set to overlap, as well as the defensive position will be set to stick to position. You don't really want them being set to step up, because that can leave quite a bit of space in behind depending on how high the field they do get. As you'll see here for the likes of the left back, he has got the same role and instructions as well. Okay, so on to your midfield. Of course, you've got Maximovic as well as Miller. Both of them have the same set of instructions. Both will be told to have a balanced attacking support, not always looking to get too far forward, and they can definitely look to drop a bit deeper if required. Most importantly though, you don't want them breaking into the box. Their job is to more so try and recycle possession on the edge of the area, looking for those more opportune moments and opportunities for your offensive outlets in terms of the wingers as well as the strikers. The interceptions is set to aggressive. Now this is to try and, make sure that they are sweeping up as much of the ball in those central areas as possible, looking to break up as much play as they possibly can in the central parts of the park, you could say. And more so, it can look to try and dictate the pace of play of the opposition, whether they can look to work the ball into those central areas, or potentially they'll look to try and bypass the middle and go long at times, in turn essentially playing into the hands of your very good, strong, aerially dominant centre-backs. As for the likes of the defensive position, it's set to cover the centre, as well as in terms of the offensive side of things, they will be told to stick to position. You don't really want them drifting out wide, whether it's on the offensive end or potentially the defensive end. You want them to be able to make sure that they are in the central areas, breaking up play and potentially recycling possession. As you'll see here for the likes of Miller, he's got the same role and instructions as well. In terms of your 2 wider midfielders, we've got Greenwood and Carmona. So what I have seen with, Bordalás is he likes to potentially every now and then play 4 fullbacks in those wide areas, and that does help with the interchangeability of one fullback can overlap the other and essentially drop into the more defensive space. But with Greenwood, obviously he's a more natural, talented striker / wide forward. So with Carmona, he is from Sevilla, obviously on loan, but he's also a fullback. And on the right-hand side, we tend to see this a bit more. But most importantly, their roles are going to be very similar, with a few changes here and there. For Greenwood, he's set to come back on defense, just like with Carmona. They will be told to and instructed to help out on the defensive end as much as possible. The chance creation for Greenwood and Carmona are slightly different. Greenwood is set to having a balance with, allowing him to sometimes drift inside when he is on the ball specifically and look to drive at the opposition, whereas likes of Carmona, you'll see here, he's set to a bit more of a stay wide approach, more of a fullback, marauding on attacking type winger, if you will. And I think it gets the best out of what Iglesias and Carmona can do on that right hand flank. Both of them will be told to get in behind, and of course this does go hand in hand with the kick and rush approach, looking to try and use the pace in those wide areas as best as possible. Also looking to try and create and facilitate for your forwards as well, looking to either whip in early crosses or potentially drive on the baseline and looking to supply them with a potential cutback. As for the interceptions, it's set to aggressive, looking to implement that aggressive press when required, of course, especially if the ball is in possession of the two wider defenders, of course the fullbacks. And then finally, the support on crosses for both Greenwood as well as Carmona, they are both set to balanced. You don't expect them to always be in the box. Every now and then they can look to try and stay on the edge of the area, and obviously look to try and facilitate with a cross or potentially a cutback opportunity. So into your forwards now, of course, we've got Myril and Mata, both very good, strong, aerially dominant centre forwards. Of course, I know Myril isn't the tallest of players, but he is very capable of attacking the space or potentially being the capable striker of out-dueling the opposition centre-backs. Both of them will look to mainly attack the central areas. You don't expect them to drift wide. You expect the wider players as well as the fullbacks to supply crosses into the box. And you have two target men that can essentially be very good at winning those aerial knockdowns or potentially those aerial duels looking for the potential goal. So again, you want both of them in those central areas at all times, waiting for a potential cross or a potential cutback opportunity. For the likes of Myril, I've gone with a more mixed approach, so this allows him to use his pace in behind if needed. Of course, it also allows him to be a bit more of a target man as well. The interceptions is set to aggressive, of course looking to try and close down the opposition backline or potentially the goalkeeper if required, if need be as well, forcing potential errors out of the opposition. In terms of the defensive support, both will be told to come back on defense. It's a very good, strong, rigid, compact defensive nature that this team possesses. Often dubbed a very aggressive team. They do tend to foul quite a bit, but you want your strikers dropping deeper, helping support, helping, you know, create this good defensive layer in front of the backline at times. So it can help, especially with the counterattacks, with them dropping deeper. They can also look to drop off of the opposition backline, and that does every now and then create a few issues for them. As for the likes of Mata, he's set to stay central and be a target man. You only require him to be that more physical, dominant type striker, whereas Myril, you can afford for him to use his pace every now and then or potentially also be a target player. The interceptions is set to normal. You don't really want both your strikers aggressively pressing because that can also break the structure of the side. And then finally, again, like I said earlier, you want the likes of both your strikers to drop a bit deeper and help support on the defensive end. So there you have it, guys. That is how I would replicate Getafe's 4-4-2 formation in FC24. If you have enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below, subscribe if you are new, and out of 10, just because I really do like how this team sets out and the relentless counter-attacking pressures that you can in turn create for them with the amount of pressure that they do tend to soak up. Of course, the ability to have a very good zonal central approach, breaking up play, forcing the opposition out wide. I would give this a solid 7.5 out of 10. Sometimes going forward it can be a bit stagnant, and if you aren't on the break and the opposition sets up a low block, you can run into a few issues. So like I say, there's always going to be pros and cons to every, you know, instruction and tactics that we do tend to come across. So I think 7.5 is very solid. It's very good. Defensively wise, class A type stuff. I absolutely love the defensive end of this. Offensively wise, not so much. But anyways, you guys can let me know down below, and I hope you have a damn great day. I'm out.